You know what it was? I wanted the RGB lights. I'm a sucker for RGB lights. While you are a sucker for doing everything Alexa in your house, like at nighttime, this place, me and my son have made this place look like it looks like a disco, probably.
But you could connect that to Alexa and control it.
How I'd feel
Alexa,
about that.
disco lights on.
I don't know how I'd feel about that. Like when he was young, I remember all this kind of there's like certain toys that he got that sometimes they would just turn on. Like they just turn on in the middle of the night. I don't know what they were. I got rid of all those toys. I got rid of every single one. I remember one time I was at a friend's house and it was going to be the first time that we ever played. And I was a grown ass woman. It wasn't like I was a kid. I was like 30 years old or something, right? And we were gonna I saw a Ouija board in the garage and I'm like, I want to play Ouija board. Like I've never played Ouija board. Let's play Ouija board. They're like, all right, sure, like whatever. And so we were gonna play the Ouija board, but then I started going around like and unplugging all these different appliances and dolls. Like I was putting in the washing machine and they were just like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm not taking any chance. Like, I don't know. I've heard stuff. I can't verify if the stuff I heard is real or not real. I've never played, but I'm not taking any chances. Stuff's getting unplugged. Any kind of weird dolls are going in like someplace secure. Nothing happened.
The thing with Alexa, or one of the things with Alexa, is if there's a power cut, when Alexa comes back on, everything turns on. So you get all the lights, all the TVs, all the aircon, everything just comes back on.
I think one time something like that happened at school with the school fish that the power cut out. And it seemed like when the power came back on, the pumps went back on, the lights went back on and everything. And we don't know if the fish got a shock, but came the next day and like 30 of them jumped out. So we didn't know if they got a fright or they got a shock. But there'd been a power outage connected to it. It was really sad. We got like popsicle, tongue depressors, fish cemetery. Yeah. I've made fish cemeteries before when there's been a mass killing of fish. Raccoon in California, you get a lot of raccoons. I
Do they
had
kill
meant
fish
to.
or eat fish?
They ate the fish. Like, and it's funny because I didn't know for a while that that's what it was. Like, I rescued fish. Like, I just felt bad because it said feeder fish, right? And so it's like, oh, this is your life you've been assigned to. You're a feeder fish. And so like that day I just thought, I feel really bad. I'm going to buy all of you. And so like I bought them and then I did good for a while. I never actually got them like a big kind of an outdoor pond thing. And I got them a pump and I learned and I studied. And it's the same thing I do with like most animals. I like to just kind of study what they do naturally, like as a naturalist almost, like I was a fan of Charles Darwin as a kid. I'd like to just watch animals sometimes. And so I found that like when I turned the pump sideways, it created a current in the thing and the fish liked to swim into it and do that. And I was talking about that on that at the podcast we recorded with Marty, that I found the sharks were doing the same thing with the rip current. They'd swim into the rip current, they'd get sucked out to sea, then they'd swim back to shore and swim back into the rift current. And I thought that's really cool.
So with these feeder fish, you mentioned last time about the pigeons. Do you not feel like you're playing God when you do?
Oh God.
Because I'd say that's playing God more so than helping an injured one, is changing the occupation of one.
I think
the life's purpose of a feeder fish is to feed.
I think that at that, and I was in my 20s, but at that particular moment, I remember feeling I was in a Petco and I just kind of felt, well, that's not fair. They didn't ask to be feeder fish. And so it wasn't about playing God. It was just that in that moment, I felt like I could change her. And I did. And it was amazing. No, they didn't ask to be feeder fish. I mean, they ask for anything, right? They just exist.
Yeah.
This is their life.
What would Darwin say about that?
I believe that Darwin was like a true naturalist. I think that he just observed and doesn't interfere. I know that I couldn't be a true naturalist because you see a lot of times, like in documentarians, when they are I don't even know if that's a word. I just sounded like it would be a good word, a documentarian.
It is now.
Um,
It's a good
it
word.
sounds like a word, right? A
What are
document,
you?
like
I'm a
somebody that makes
documentarian.
documentaries, documentarian. If it's not, I should coin it, right?
Yeah.
Um, Remind me to go back to that about copywriting names because I want to talk to you about that in a minute about coining stuff. Anyways, I don't know because you write stuff down. I don't write stuff down. So I think that no, I'm going to go back to this thing because this thing kind of like blows me away. I did not know until yesterday that cities, well, I don't know if all cities, but certainly the city of Los Angeles has copyrighted like most of the street names, the city name, the Hollywood sign, all that. And that's why, like, even in games, you can't, like, my son's playing like GTA and it like takes place in like LA. And so I used to live in LA. So I was like, we were sitting last night and I'm like, oh, well, I wonder if you drive. Like, I wonder if like my house is there. And I'm like, and he's like, oh, where'd you live? I'm like, just off Sunset, like literally on the Sunset Strip. I said, okay, just go see if there's like an Amoeba Records. There's no Amoeba Records. And when you went down it wasn't, none of the streets weren't named. Like Hollywood wasn't Hollywood, Sunset wasn't Sunset. And I said, that's weird. Why? He just said, oh, it's because, and he knew, like, he's like 14. He's like, oh, it's a copyright.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean the city has a copyright on the name? He's like, yeah, the city, you can't use the street names. I'm like, why? But then it made sense because I guess it's so famous. I mean, if somebody's going to sell a T-shirt that says Hollywood and Vine, I suppose they want their money's worth for that. Like, how do you even enforce that? How do you even find somebody? Now I feel like just making a Hollywood and Vine shirt just to be a rebel.
Yeah. No, I don't know how unique these street names are. Is there a sunset in, I don't know, San Francisco or San Diego? There must
Sunset
be.
Cliffs. We have Sunset Cliffs.
But they're not unique names.
No, that's why it's
Especially
very
in
strange.
the
Well,
UK, they
Hollywood, I
wouldn't.
suppose Hollywood is pretty unique.
I guess things like Abbey Road might be. Like, there's more than one Abbey Road.
Did you? I don't know if you happen to see something I reposted the other day, but it was it caught me because it was Alice Cooper and he was talking about the old Hollywood sign was like coming apart and some or something like that. And it was like falling into disrepair. And so he sponsored it on behalf of somebody else. And then other people started like I think like he said Steven Spielberg got one. And I just thought that was so crazy that it had to be sponsored. Like these things were bizarre things to me. Like I thought, wouldn't the Hollywood sign be like maintained by the city? But apparently it's not.
No, I've seen it was. It didn't used to be Hollywood either, did it? It used to be Hollywoodland.
Hollywoodland,
Hollywoodland,
yeah.
yeah. But yeah, it's a bit of a mess. If you go close up, I haven't seen it in real life, but on TV, if you go close up, it's falling apart.
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoyed my time. There was like a love-hate relationship of living in LA. Just as London would be very different from Manchester, right? LA is very different from San Diego, a completely different vibe. Like very, very different vibe. I would say that because a lot of you have two kinds of people in San Diego. You have a lot of military, and so they're not from there because you have Camp Pendleton, which is huge. Like that's 500 by 500 square miles. That's a pretty big base, right? You've got Miramar, you've got tons of bases, just tons of military down there. So you got all this military, but then you got locals. The locals are pretty chill. It is a giant surf community. I think because it's natural. We live next to the ocean, but it was something that we were talking about before you and me. The surf culture, skate culture is a very chill kind of a culture. Like if you want to skate and you want to do a trick, a lot of times you're not going to do it on the first time, right? So it takes repetition, stuff like that. And you tend to have patience. And it's the same with surfing. Sometimes you're out there for a long time waiting for the perfect wave, right? Or a good set. So I think that kind of mentality seems to, for the most part, spread across, I think, San Diego. LA has a lot of people not from LA. And LA has a lot of people with a bunch of dreams, and sometimes those dreams are lofty, and sometimes it's a heartbreaking road to take to get to those dreams. And I've said it before to people, sometimes you could feel that, like going into a restaurant, servers. They're living paycheck to paycheck, you know, tired because they're trying to go to this casting call while working like three jobs so they can afford to live. It's that overwhelming sense of, I don't know, there's like a, to me, a bit of sadness. There's glamour to it and all. There's gorgeous, I mean, it's a gorgeous city, right? And
I
then there's
think
characters.
I was just about to say one of the greatest movies ever, road trip movie, the Muppet movie. That shows how they all meet on the way to LA, and it is.
Yeah.
It's all about going to the promised land and being movie stars and living the American dream.
But it is scary. I remember like one time I just was walking and like I said, I lived off a Sunset. So it was just like a went one street over and it was Sunset. And I was walking like back from Amoeba Records or something, and I had a flannel shirt on, had jeans. I don't carry a purse or stuff. So I just had money in my, and it was nighttime. And I sat down for a minute because I had a blister like on the back of my heels. So like I was like readjusting something, and like car rolled up. Hey, you okay? You need to go somewhere? No. A second later, another car. Hey, you good? You need help? And I like, I don't necessarily, I mean, they could be very friendly, helpful people, but I mean, there's a little bit something sinister about that, you know, on Sunset Boulevard at night.
Yeah,
And I'm not talking like two
crack o'clock.
o'clock in the crack morning. Yeah. Right. But I mean, this is like 8 o'clock, you know, just something not big at all. And it's like,
Yeah, there
that's
seems to be
crazy.
something just as the sun goes down, it brings out that kind of character.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that I felt safer walking around San Diego than I would have walked around. One of my best stories I'm going to tell you, I was reminded of the other day because somebody was talking about, I think they were just talking about Generation X versus kids today. And they said you haven't done whatever unless you've like had to push your own car to pop the clutch to start it. And I was like, oh man. And I was like thinking about that. A lot of my friends remember I used to have this lemon of a car, just absolutely, it was a new car, but it was just a lemon. And I just too lazy to go get the batteries changed or whatever. So like I just always had to park on a hill, always had to park on a hill to pop the clutch backwards or forwards, just had to pop the clutch that way. This is a really true story. And I think I've kind of told you this before, but this is how safe it is in San Diego. Um, I was going to go meet my friends, Mark and stuff, for jazz night at some Brazilian restaurant that they had jazz night. And I think like I had $10. That's it. I was like totally broke at that time. Um, but it was like $1 cover to get in and $1 drinks like for the first hour. So I thought I'll get in, pay for me. Maybe I'll nurse a beer for like 4 hours because usually that's what it takes. About 4 hours I'll nurse a beer. So that's $1. And I had three friends. It was Mark and Beto and somebody else, right? So that's $5. And so then I had $5 for parking. So I don't go out a lot, but I was like really enthusiastic to like I hadn't been and I wanted to go so badly to like a jazz club, right? With like jazz playing, cool jazz. And that I never had that experience before. And it's like, and so Mark was like, you got to come here. This is where you got to go. So I was stoked. I was like so excited. But like I said, I'm pretty sheltered, don't usually go out. So like I drove into this parking lot downtown and I was like, you know, parking $5. I'm like, perfect. Go in there and it's like honk, 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 just honking. Some guy, you know, comes up to me and he's tall, you know, he's African American, he's got dreads, and he's like tapped on my window. I rolled down my window. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, why are you honking? I said, I was trying to find the attendant. He's like, this is, and he like pointing, he's like, it's a pay. You just go put your money in the slot. You find your slot. If it's part number 10, go to the 10 thing, fold your money and stick it in. I'm like, oh, well, thank you. And he's, you know, he's like, by the way, do you have any money, you know, to spare? And so I was really honest. I'm like, and I explained the whole thing. I'm like, I got $10. This is what I got. And he just said, how about this? He's like, right now you could park on the street. It's free. So why don't you park on the street and give me the $5 that you would pay for the parking? And I was like, that explanation makes total sense. I'm like, all right. So I said, get in. And he's like, what do you mean get in? I'm like, well, you got to come find a parking place with me and then I can give you the money. Right. So let's find a parking place. And so we just like drove around. Like it was like, and it was so safe. And he turned out to be totally cool. And afterwards we found a place to park. And then I said, this is where I'm going. Where are you going? He's like, nowhere. I'm like, you want to walk with me? And then we just walked and talked. And I asked him, like, how'd you end up on the streets? Tell me your story. Best talk ever. I never went into that jazz club that night. I ended up hooking up with him and a bunch of other homeless guys. And some of those homeless guys had been jazz musicians, like in real life, and were telling me these stories. And it was funny because this is before cell phones came out, and it was just right in front of the club. And eventually, like Mark and Beto and all them came out, like, hey, where are you? Are you good? I'm like, no, I'm totally good. Sad things. I mean, it was really sad though, sitting there. There was that night I learned a lot. There was people that were really cruel and just made assumptions like, hey, are these guys bothering you? I'm like, dude, I am sitting here cross-legged on the grass or on the sidewalk, on the ground. Does it look like I need help? It's like totally lit. There's cops everywhere. Like, do I need help? No, you're just being a dick for whatever reason, right? I tell my kid all the time some of the best conversations I've had were with homeless people. Because I think sometimes they miss having conversation,
Yeah.
just like normal conversation. And you get some of the purest conversations, those are some, I remember every conversation I've ever had with a homeless person because they've always been quite remarkable. And it has taught me, and I hope to teach my son, that you definitely cannot judge a book by its cover, you know? Um, so many stories. And they were such good reminders when I was young too. It's fun. Here's a funny story. This is a true story. And my mom, when I was a kid, to try to be protective of me when we were living in San Diego, um, she didn't want to necessarily talk about homelessness. Like she didn't really know how to explain it at 5 years old. Like these people don't. It was too much, so she just called them bush people. And so and then it was like so funny because then like it was so exciting to me. I'm like, oh look, like, and we drive down Balboa Park, and sometimes it was like sad now in retrospect, right? But like I thought that these were like natives. Like at 5 years old, I thought these were just like native people that decided to live in the trees, and so it was always like a thrill. So like it was like there was never a bad connotation with homeless people. It was like exciting to me. They were like free spirits. They're gonna live out amongst the trees. Um, but yeah, like best conversations and like a reminder because so many of those stories were literally I was doing good, then it some stuff came up in life, medical bills, then it was paycheck to paycheck, then I couldn't afford my car payment anymore, then I couldn't afford my rent anymore. So then I was living in my car, but then I was on the lam, like hiding my car while I was living in it. And then I got my car repossessed, and it was like, dude, that could happen to anybody.
Yeah.
It can really happen to anybody. And then you got to think about all the people that have undiagnosed mental issues, you know? I mean, even me, like I've been working with kids for 7 years, um, with access to a lot of special education need learning and seminars and things like that. And it makes me realize, like I've talked to you about it. I'm like, I think I'm undiagnosed a lot of things, a lot of letters undiagnosed. Like I could see the patterns. Like wow. But at the same time, and I think a lot of people our age were probably undiagnosed because it just wasn't a thing. Like I've told people this, like I said, when we had kids that were acting up when we were young, they were called spazzes, right? And that was
Yeah.
like they're spazzing out. But it wasn't like a necessarily a negative connotation back then. It was just like, oh, he's spazzing out. But literally what the teachers they'd open up a can of Coke and give it to the kid. And it was like knocking things over, like flipping over desks in third grade. But why he gets a Coke? And a Coke was something special back then, right? You didn't
Yeah.
always get a Coke. And it's like, why does he get a Coke? And it was like, because back then they thought that the caffeine would help with that. That's what they thought.
I think it's a very Generation X attitude. The everyone's different, but like you say, there was no stigma. It was, oh, this kid's just a bit weird today.
Yeah, there's no stigma.
Just deal with it. Everyone's
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
Whereas now it's everything has to be labelled and almost shoehorned into something, even if it's not accurate. I think.
I think there's good parts about that, and I think there's bad parts about that. The good parts are that sometimes, for example, I can't remember, it just popped up on my feed, but there was like some celebrity recently that said that they just found out they were just diagnosed with ADHD. And no, you know what? It wasn't a celebrity. It was Bob Ballard. It was Bob Ballard that, I mean, he would hate to say this, but I mean, he's known for a lot of he's an undersea explorer, most famous for finding Titanic, but many other, vessels as well underwater. But he said that he was just recently diagnosed with ADHD, and it was like a game changer for him because he understood now how he processed, how he learned things better. So I think that sometimes labels, I mean, it is tough. There's so many labels, right? There's so many labels for so many things. But if it can point somebody into the right direction where that they can get some help that they might not necessarily have gotten had they weren't attached to a certain label, then I think that that's good.
I think it is, but I think the converse can be dangerous. That if people attach themselves to a label and use it as an excuse to not do things, I think that's a bit of a cop out. I've known people that have said, "I'm ADHD, I can't do that,"
Yeah.
which is almost an excuse. And there's the Curb Your Enthusiasm
Yeah.
episode. Well, there's a couple. There's one where Larry wears the MAGA
Yeah.
hat so he can get away with everything because they just think he's an arsehole. And then there's the other where
That's so genius.
he claims to be autistic. I think it's autism, or it might be Tourette's. But there's something that means that he's just rude to people. Well, he
Yeah.
is anyway. But
Yeah.
his reasoning is, well, I've got Tourette's.
Yeah. But is he? Is he rude to people? I mean, he can be, right? But I don't think that he's just out there being rude to people in the world, right? Like, for example, and I've done this before. I've done this because of him. I've done it. That one episode where like the guy is talking really loud on the phone, and so Larry David talks to an imaginary person on the phone or just starts talking loud, and the guy's like, "Do you mind?" He's like, "Yeah, I actually do." But people do that, like, so, like, in elevators and stuff, and I'm like, dude, like at the bottom of your phone there is a mic.
Yeah.
It picks up everything. Like, you can whisper and it'll pick it up. Like, we all don't need to hear. I wonder, what I should have done? The prank that I do to people that I know is what I should have done to that guy, whoever he was on the phone with, and just been like, "Sir, your butt cream is ready. Your hemorrhoid cream is ready, sir."
Yeah.
Or something worse than that, like, "Your syphilis medicine is
Yeah.
ready."
We've just got the results of your STD test.
Is syphilis still a thing?
It is. I was talking about it quite recently. I had a discussion with someone, and they were like, "What's the STD that starts with?" I was like, and we both. This is the maestro. I was talking with the maestro. He's like, "The STD. What is it? What is it?" I don't know. Herpes. Like, no, the one that starts with S. And we just went quiet for a second. He started talking, and I interrupted him. Syphilis. It's like, yes, that's it.
Have you seen the old World War II like army ads, like to try to warn troops about, how to not contract syphilis? But these were like actual army ads. Like, I'll find one and send it to you because I remember I bought a metal tin of one when eBay first came out. This is one of those things. Do you remember where you were when you discovered eBay?
I remember
Do you remember where
eBay
you were?
first coming out. I think we probably had it a couple of years, well, certainly after you. But yeah, I mainly used it for selling, not buying. But yeah, I remember. I remember
I
those days,
discovered
the
it.
early days.
I discovered it in uh 2000. The first thing I discovered was the first thing I looked for was metal lunchboxes, like from when we were kids, like metal lunch. And I went down a crazy rabbit hole because I was just like, why they stop making metal lunchboxes? And then I started doing research. I went to the library, found a book, and they said that starting like in 1987, because kids were like bonking each other on the head, like using it as a weapon, that they went away from the metal and then they started doing the plastic lunchboxes. I'm a very nostalgic person. And so sometimes it's like I um I like I like things that remind me of my childhood. It just makes me happy to like see it. Um, and so and I can remember how it smells, just the smell of opening it. And I was living in the Philippines at the time, like when I was taking lunch boxes to school, and so it was quite hot and quite humid. So even if you put your ham and cheese with mayo sandwich in there in the morning, like by the time it's lunch, it is getting warm and stuff. And we had like a small fridge, like every classroom had a small fridge where we just all put our lunch boxes in, but still that smell. How long ago was it that I went to school? Like this is a true story that in third grade we could get cup of noodles and just get the hot water ourselves in third grade. Like that wouldn't happen now. They'd be like, kids will get burned. Yeah, we got burned. We did get burned,
Yeah,
but we
but
just
just once, yeah.
yeah,
And
right.
then
That
you
was just
learn.
yeah, right. Um So once I found that there was metal lunchboxes on there, I remembered every single lunchbox I had because I mean that was the thing and it was connected to so many things. You get your lunchbox out, you sit with your friends. What do you got? What do you got? Everybody's trading. It came with the thermos. That kind of felt grown up because the thermoses that came with the lunchboxes at the time, you unscrew the top, it was a little cup. You could, pour it out this way. So it felt very grown up. And my favorite lunchbox was the Muppet movie. And it was Kermit with the rainbow. And the edges of the lunchbox were actually this, and this is a huge reason why I have this watch. So my son got me for Mother's Day this Timex watch, and it's got Snoopy on it, and he just said he's the best son ever.
Remind
Yes.
him how he got it then.
He Desmond said to remind you how you got it.
Oh,
So
you've got a
it's
new
got
strap.
yeah, so
Cool.
I didn't like the other strap. It was a metal strap, but I went and got a silicone strap, but it is the same. Basically, I've made this the lunchbox. The lunchbox had this purple was the edge of the lunchbox. It had a blue sky. It had a rainbow, but instead of Snoopy, it had Kermit. And it was the Muppet movie lunchbox. It was my favorite. And so that was my first purchase on eBay. And I think that I probably paid like $35 for it, which isn't a big thing. And I was quite happy. Then I started seeing the other Muppet Show lunchboxes. I had the Muppet Show that was my thing, right? So like they had the pigs in space, and I was like, oh, I have to have the pigs in space. And I remember getting into this is stupid. I didn't understand really like the tricks that people do on eBay, right? The sniping, and sometimes people make fake accounts and like try to bid you to drive the numbers up, but it's really them just bidding. And so I wanted this one Muppet thing. I put in a bid, and there was like seriously like 5 days to go, and I didn't know. I didn't know. I put in a bid. It gets outbid. I put in another bid. Gets outbid. Like I didn't know any better. This is probably my third or fourth transaction on eBay ever. Ended up spending like $370 on a stupid lunchbox.
Well, my most recent eBay purchase, I think, was Muppets Funko Pops. There
Oh,
was
nice.
Mafia bought me a suitcase full of them. They're all collectible,
Yeah,
the Muppets ones. Um, of course, once you get into the full set, there's always a slightly different variation and so on.
yeah.
So I was missing two or three, so I hunted them down, and I eventually got to the last one that I needed to complete my Muppets collection. and it was a 3 pack of, I think it's I don't know, it's not even a proper Muppets character. I think it's
Who is
Mana
it?
Mana. It's the two.
Oh, the Manamana. You have the
Yeah,
Manamana? There's a pop Funko for that?
yeah, it's a 3 pack, and it's the most rare one of the Muppets. I think I paid. I don't want to say.
Really? I know somebody that I need to get that for, because that's always been our thing for years, the Manamana thing.
Yeah, well, they
That's
get a
so, like,
Muppets
I did not
Funko.
know that.
That's like super rare because some of them are limited edition, so there are only like 200 of them made.
How
Uh,
many pop Funkos do you have?
Hundreds and hundreds.
Really?
Yeah,
Um, do
I
you,
only
okay,
buy. Okay, I think I know what you're going to ask. Something like Star Wars, for example. There's thousands of them, so I've got no intention of collecting all the Star Wars ones. I will buy the Star Wars characters I like.
mhm,
So I have a Qui-Gon Jinn and a Obi-Wan Kenobi and a Luke Skywalker. But I wouldn't buy the full set. I have full sets of the Muppets,
mhm,
Breaking Bad,
mhm.
Supernatural, which I don't think you've seen. Um, I think that's and Seinfeld. I've got all the Seinfeld Funko Pops.
Nice. Are you the type of collector that always just keeps them in the box?
If it's a collectible, if I don't
Hmm.
have a spare one, yes. Not just in a
And
box, but in a protected box. I
in a
buy the
protective box.
I buy the plastic protectors.
Really? Do
Yeah.
you buy to later resell?
I don't know. I haven't resold any, but I think I do see them as an investment.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because I used to say to my son, because I started collecting Star Wars stuff. Like, he had no choice, poor kid. I started collecting Star Wars, like, as soon, like, pretty much, this isn't even a joke. Marty will attest to this. Um, Pretty much as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I was like ordering Star Wars stuff. And and you couldn't find it here. So, like, I was having everything sent to Marty, and then Marty was sending everything to me. And it was just like just huge shipments of just Star Wars stuff, like Star Wars sheets, Star Wars, like, curtains. And he's just like, dude, he's like, he can't even walk yet, right? I'm like, yeah, 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 but still, like, maybe it won't be around, maybe you can't find it, whatever. And there was some things that it was good that I bought it. Like, I found an original Millennium Falcon from, like, way back in the 80s that some guy had in his garage, and it was just completely boxed, right? And this thing is like a meter, a meter. You can open it up, and it is exactly, it's even got the smuggler panels where you can, for the smuggling and everything.
Yeah, I
It's
think I have
got
that one.
the table that
Yeah,
they sit at. It's got an escape pod. It's got
it's got those guns
everything.
as well, right? Those whatever
Everything.
they're called. Yeah,
Yeah. And this was like
it's got the
vintage, and like,
cockpit. Yeah,
and this was before Force Awakens. It's the news trilogy, came out. So I happened to just it's been a while since the second group, the Attack of the Clones and all that came. It had been a while, so there wasn't an interest. So I paid good money for it, but then almost immediately it was like, just went up. So a lot of the stuff that I bought, like, I have this one Mandalorian blaster before the Mandalorian came out. It was a Boba Fett blaster. And so, like, I bought it. I'm like, yeah. And somebody didn't want it because they were just like, oh, Boba Fett's not a big character, right?
yeah.
But like me, I was buying so much, like, stuff. I take everything out. Pretty much everything is out. The only thing that I've not unboxed yet is, and it's just, and he's the only one that's not in with the rest of the Star Wars stuff right now, is because I'm still marveling. It was the Admiral Akbar that you got me. Because he was the only one I'd been missing. Like, I have characters that, I mean, we have the whole Sisley Cantina, like the bartender. We've got Greedo, like, we've got baby Greedo. We've got, like, everything. Like, there's so much Star Wars stuff. It's like, I always told my son, I'm like, this is your inheritance, right? That's it. Just sell off piece by piece. But could never sell that stuff off. I love it. I got him the giant at the one that I wanted when I was a kid, that my parents were like, we can't afford that. Then I got older. I'm like, I can afford that now. You're getting an at. And then what was funny was like my best friends, Stevie, Craig, they were the ones that were playing with it. Like, can we go? Can we go and play in his room?
It's like the Seinfeld episode where they feed the girl with turkey and wine so she falls asleep so they can play with her collectibles.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
question for you that might be quite controversial.
Okay.
So, and we can apply it to music too. Say Star Wars, if you're a Star Wars fan,
Mm-hmm.
and we can apply this to anything really. And you think, okay, we've got A New Hope, we've got Empire Strikes Back, we've got
Mm-hmm.
Return of the Jedi, all good. If the quality, if the output of the product starts to deteriorate, do you still stick with them, or do you give up on them?
Here's an interesting, well, it's funny because while I was looking at Disney yesterday, I was like, wow, there's a lot, the Disney Channel thing. And it said, go to Star Wars. I'm like, oh yeah, let's see, I feel like watching a Star Wars. And there was so much there were shows I never even heard of before. Right. And I just thought, wow. And you kind of knew that was going to happen when Disney bought,
Yeah,
Star Wars. But it was like, wow, I do think, I think that, yeah, I think that there could be overkill. I do think so. But see, it's funny because I don't know if, yeah, no, they have, because I've seen it on the boxes. I was going to say, does Disney have licensing too? But they do, because I've seen it on the boxes of new Star Wars stuff I get. I think that they're just trying to capitalize on all that, Star Wars money. But yeah, I do think I think it can be overkill. Mandalorian is great. Mandalorian is great. And what makes Mandalorian great is that it's a space movie, but it's a space spaghetti Western.
yeah.
That's really what it is. And I love that. I totally, absolutely, what a great format, and that's absolutely ingenious. And I think it was like John Favreau, right? I don't
Yeah.
know how much is all him or if other people, he collaborated with other people, but what a great way to present something that everybody loves in a different way that is equally compelling to watch. I love it. I think
Yeah.
the humor in it, just like even the banter of troopers sometimes when they're waiting for something to happen, like, what is it? Don't look. You can't look in there. I just
Yeah.
want to see what it is.
Like
you
the
know?
relationship between these two is just so wholesome between
Yeah.
Grogu and the Mandalorian,
Yeah.
and how that
Absolutely. So
develops, and just the affection they have for each other.
yeah, and just like just the friendships and stuff, like just meeting people along the way. That's kind of one of the things about Sayonara Cupcake, and I told you about that from the start, that I wanted it to kind of be a place where people just can come from all, like if you were to go into the Mos Eisley Cantina. That's why, like, on the website, it's called the Sayonara Cupcake Cantina. And I said, because I kind of envisioned it like the Mos Eisley Cantina, where you've got people, from all parts of the galaxy. They're all hanging out there. For the most part, they're minding their own business. There might be some scoundrels here or there,
Some
you know,
scum and villainy.
right? So a little bit of that, you know, like, but that's what it is. It's like just a place, a melting pot to share stories. What have you heard? What do you got? I want to talk to you about something today because it's weird because I'm conflicted. I kind of want to talk about it and I kind of don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it in the sense of it's none of my business and it's somebody else's business, but it is news, but it's affected other people have come to me to say something about it. And so I felt like I kind of want to talk about it then. And what I wanted to talk about was this morning. I'm not going to mention his name, but everybody knows there was the very famous rocker had released a statement that he had fathered a child outside of his marriage. Personally speaking, I saw that today, and a part of me was like, "That's a shame, right? That's a shame." And then I thought later on, before anybody talked to me about it, I'm like, "Why did I think that that's a shame? Why do I think? Is it because everybody looks at that person like, oh, this is a good guy, wholesome guy. Everybody likes him. No one's got a bad word to say about him, right? Is that why it seemed disappointing to me? Or was it for other reasons?" And I said, it's just disappointing, right? I can't really pinpoint on why. Everybody makes mistakes in life. Not everybody has it blasted on the internet, right? Every failure. So then later on in the day, a couple, like maybe minutes later, first friend said, "Hey, did you hear about this? I'm really disappointed. I'm really disappointed that, this in this person." And I said, number one, we have no idea. Nobody has any idea what anybody else is going through, right? I'm not going to sit there and make examples, make suppositions of, oh, this could have been happening, this could have happened. It doesn't matter. There's like 8 million bazillion things that it could be, right? We have no idea. People do what they do for whatever reason, have no idea. The things I know to be true, that the facts I have of this are this, though, without excusing anybody. The facts are this: he took accountability for it, didn't blame anybody else, took accountability for it, made the apologies for it, guaranteed that he would be in that kid's life. Doesn't change the fact that this is a good guy or bad guy. You could be a good guy and make a bad decision. We don't even know if it's a bad. We have no idea, and that's the thing. But like I said to this person, I'm like, what we do know is that they took accountability, and to me, that means something in a world where a lot of people don't take accountability. They just want to deny things happen or put it off on somebody else. The fact that somebody took accountability, I give them that. Do I think less of him as a person? No, because I don't know anything about him. I don't know anything about him. He seems like a nice guy. He seems like a pretty solid guy. It seems like everybody likes him. I've still no idea. None of us have any idea, right? So I think that it's weird because I didn't want to talk about it because I don't like to talk about stuff that has nothing to do with us. But at the same time, it is obviously affecting people. Do you think that that is fair? Do you think it's fair that if you are somebody that's well known, that you have to be held to a different standard than everybody? I mean, that's tough, man. I mean, we all mess up. Everybody messes up in one way or another in something, right? That's tough to just have it all, everyone judging you. I think that we need to be more forgiving of one another.
Yeah, I think when somebody's a celebrity, such as this person is, they are almost a role model to lots of people. So I think
Do
there
you
is
think that's
some.
fair?
I think it's a. I don't know if it's fair or not fair, but I think it's a price that comes with fame. Um, I think if that's something you don't want to consider, you cannot be famous. Yeah, I think
That
you'd
and
have to
that
step
seems
away.
unfair, right? And that
Yeah,
seems
yeah,
unfair.
yeah. I'm not saying that's fair or unfair. I'm just saying that seems to be the way the world works. That if you're famous, you are held to a different standard. You're put on a pedestal and worshipped almost, and everything you do is over scrutinized. And I think you're right. The way he seems to be dealing with it is hitting it positively. He's saying, yes, I take responsibility. Yes, I'm going to look after this kid. Yes, I've spoken to my family. Yes, we're going to move forward. I think, of all the ways he could have dealt with it, that's the best one.
We have no idea. Does it suck? Yes. And I think also another thing why so many people are attached to it, because cheating is a common thing. Like, people know somebody that's been cheated on, people have been cheated on, people cheat on other people, and there's all sorts of different reasons, right? You can't sit there and say, is this excusable? It has nothing to do with me. I can't know. None of us can know what anybody else is going through. Does it suck? Oh, totally. It sucks. It totally sucks to.
Yeah, but that's almost like grief. It's going through different stages of dealing with something.
Mine is pretty fast.
Well, yeah.
Mine is so fast. Like when someone's done, when I'm done, when I've been done with somebody in the past, it's just like done. And not like necessarily in a mean way. It's just like I'm moving from this place. No bad blood, but I'm just moving from this place. Cause I think that, God, man, I've known so many people that I call them going through extended breakups, where it just seems like we're having the same conversation over years
Yeah.
of, I'm going to leave this person. I'm not happy. I'm not, and then it's like good. but then it's bad. And then it's like, it's one of the, like a super long breakup. Me, it's like, it's not working, moving on,
Yeah.
you know? And
Let, let,
it comes nowhere. There's no bad that comes from it. It might seem cruel and it might seem bad, but it's like, we're done here. Whatever we're doing right now, I need to go focus on something else. Obviously, you should go focus on something else. Maybe can we come back later and be in a good place? And I would say that that's possible because I'm friends with almost every single ex I have. And some of them, like, it's just, casual, like, hey, what's up? How you doing? Checking in. Some I'm super close with. Some are like my best friends still because there's like that kind of respect of just because it didn't work out like that, you know, it doesn't mean that you're not super important to me, you know? I'm not an easy person to live with, I think.
let me suggest something cynical about the news, though, the Rockstar news that came out today. And knowing about the media circus and how things are orchestrated and when things are released, do you think, and I'm not suggesting this at all, that the news was released today because it might get overshadowed by the debate between Trump and Harris? Do you think
I
do you think
think
it's
more, no,
possible,
I
though?
think more of it was going to come out. Somebody else was going to put it out. And so at least he could have control
That's
of,
what I mean, though. Did he control it to come out today so it was overshadowed, whereas if it was next week or last week?
I don't think it had to do with, I don't, I mean, could it have to do with election stuff? Yeah, obviously 50-50, but I would not, I wouldn't honestly think it had anything to do with that, in my opinion.
I just wondered if it could get hidden under the pile of, 'cause obviously from the debate, which I'm not going to watch,
There's a
there
lot
could
of,
be a lot of fallout, and you know, people tend to focus on the most recent scandal or most recent news.
well, there's a lot of rock scandals going on right now. There's one I will talk about, and I don't want to necessarily talk about the scandal itself because again, I don't know enough about it. I don't know enough about the people or what's going on, but the Lincoln Park has decided to get a new singer and it's a female. And a lot of people are not happy with the choice that they picked as a singer. And the reason being was that she is a Scientologist or was a Scientologist. She was friends with Danny Masterson and spoke up for him before he was convicted of rape and sentenced to prison. And a lot of people, and she addressed it upon getting hired because I remember Stereo Gums like had her addressing and just saying, like, he was my friend. I supported him at the time. Then the trial came out and I heard things and my opinion changed. And that wasn't enough for some people. And this is what I want to talk about because I mean, people are quite angry, quite angry. I mean, people are mad at Lincoln Park for picking her. Even Chester Bennington's son has like kind of thrown his hat into all this as well. There's some drama in that. Chester Ben, his wife, is kind of throwing her support for the female. There's just a lot of drama. But the bottom line, I sit there and I think, you know, we all have friends. And I think that we all want to believe in our friends, right? We want to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I mean, I have a lot of friends that I could not imagine. If anybody told me right now that any friend I had that is in my close circle was a rapist, I would have a hard time believing because I know my friends and I'd be like, I no, you're wrong. You're barking up the wrong tree, right? But then again, we go back to 50-50, right? And it is possible. Like we only see what people let us see, right? Choose to let us see. Maybe some people don't show. So do I think that she was wrong for backing up her friend? If at the time she believed one thing because she thought, hey, I know this person. I've been around this person. I've seen this person with other women. I've seen how this person has treated other women in my presence. Are we to fault her because she doesn't know how he acts when he's in a room alone with some other woman and she's intoxicated and, there's nobody? Like, are we supposed to fault her for that? Like, no. I don't know who she is. I haven't heard her sing, know nothing about her, but I know right away I'm not going to fault somebody for believing in their friend and then afterwards saying, I can't I can't deny this evidence, you know? I'm sad. Yeah, they were my friend. I don't believe this way anymore.
Yeah,
Um
I think it clouds the water as well when I don't know that Scientology is involved,
yeah.
because I'm not sure how much agency people have in expressing their opinions. I think there might be some influence within the organization that they have to, or they're encouraged to say certain things.
Again, we don't know. Like people get worked up in life over so much stuff that we don't know. We don't know. Like we can like make suppositions and sit there and think of like what if, what if, what if, and it's like Doctor Strange with his 4 million possibilities of the outcome of Endgame Avengers, right? It's so many possibilities. We have no idea. Here's what I do know though. A lot of people do like to pick on Scientology, right? A lot of people like to pick on Scientology. They think it's a cult, they think it's whatever. Tell me, and I'm not trying to offend anybody, but tell me how any other religion doesn't seem at times, because you've got different extremes of religions as well, right? You've got passive Buddhist, you've got non-passive Buddhist. Like I've seen Buddhist monks fighting in some places, right? But the thing is, isn't all of it kind of a little bit like of a cult? And cult doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing, but isn't everybody like, aren't there many groups of people, lots of different groups of people following an ideology that says this ideology is better than all the other ideologies, right? But then, and so all these different ideologies exist side by side. But I think it's kind of just funny, like not in a ha ha way, but like in a of like, really, you're going to call out this other ideology when I don't know, man, like do a side by side comparison. Is it, I mean, what is it about their ideology that is so crazy, so out there, so whatever from some of your ideology? And every ideology's got crazy stuff in it. I'm not singling out any religion, any ideology, but everyone has got crazy stuff in it, you know?
Yeah, I think when it comes to Scientology, part of the fear is the secrecy that's involved and the lack of knowledge about it.
Yeah,
And
and also like in cases that are kind of public that like for me, like I have no opinion on it so much because except that I was telling my son about it because when we were driving through the GTA game, I was like trying to find the Scientology building because whenever I'd go over to my friends Johnny and Mike's, it like we'd have to pass the Scientology center, and we'd always sit there, go, what's going on in there? Like this, because it seems secret, right?
yeah,
I think that people can only go by the bits and pieces that are, you know, given out to the public. And a huge thing, I think a huge thing that makes people kind of go, huh, I hate to say it, like I don't like talking about people, right? Like I don't have anything invested in celebrities, but this is pretty like open and public. There's a certain celebrity that's in that he's single. He was married to a female that was like on TV shows and they had a child and he has no contact with that child whatsoever. And according to the reports, it's because of the religion. That I find hard to understand, I suppose, just being a parent. Because, like, man, I got a kid. I can't imagine not being with my kid, right? But that's just me. So when I look at that, I'm like, if that's what it is, if you have some ideology that's telling you don't hang out with your kid, I think that's the part that makes it hard for people to understand. And so they're not necessarily, I think, attacking the ideology, but it's like, what kind of ideology where it's telling you you should not hang out with your kid. I think that's the problem.
yeah,
I think that if we all didn't know about that, I mean, is there a lot of Scientology stuff that anybody's overly concerned about? Like, are they doing anything? Like, have they burned down anything? Have they protested? Like, there really is nothing. So the only thing is really that. Oh, and like Leah Remini.
Yeah.
I mean, she has a lot to say, and she used to be a former Scientologist. She's J Lo's best friend. Like, those are really the only two people like really speaking out about it. You know, you don't really. I don't know how it works. I don't know anything about it. If it makes people happy, more power to them. But I think that the biggest problem that people have is like looking at this example of this big star and not understanding that, because people go, he seems like a nice guy, maybe a little intense. You know, his ex wife seems like a lovely, lovely woman that most boys my age had a crush on, you know, when she was on TV. They have a lovely, beautiful child. I don't understand it. It's not for me to understand, but that's probably where a lot of that stigma associated with Scientology comes from. That he's like the most famous Scientologist.
Yeah.
It's funny that I you wouldn't have gotten it probably in the UK. Maybe you did in the UK, but in the 80s, like the early 80s, that was like the commercial, the infomercial at night was L. Ron Hubbard. Like you would always the
Never got that.
infomercials. You would did you get it?
No.
Yeah, we got it was like buy this book. You'd get like in the middle of the night, you get like Zamfir. Zamfir was this dude with his pan flute. There was that guy. You got Freedom Rock. There was like you could buy this CD and get like, I don't know, just a bunch of 60s bands and for like $12.99. You could get The Secret. Did you ever watch that? Like that was so big. Like people were like in the 90s, people were like giving everybody this CD called The Secret. It's like it was talking about like manifestation. I don't know. Um,
That might
so
segue into what you wanted to talk about. I always thought L. Ron Hubbard was his name, L. Ron, but it's not right. It's L.
yeah,
Ron.
like L. Ronald Hubbard, like D.
Yeah,
Dickie McGowan.
yeah, yeah. So you wanted to talk about celebrity names, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one in particular.
That I want to talk about
Yeah, Michael.
Michael Douglas, Michael Keaton.
Yeah,
No, which Michael?
Michael. Michael Keaton Douglas. Yeah,
Ah, Michael
yeah,
Keaton Douglas.
yeah.
I did know this about him for a long time. I did know that his name was Michael Douglas. For I probably like 20 years, I've known his name was Michael Douglas, and I know that he had taken it. I knew all the reasons. I don't know why I knew, but I did know that. I think that my opinion, it seems moot at this point because people just know him as Michael Keaton, or people just know him as Batman. Like he is Batman.
Yeah. Or
Um, so
Beetlejuice. Yeah.
so I mean, I get it because I mean, sometimes if you have made a career and you have spent your life, hi, sweetheart, come here. No, you're not. You can come say hi.
Are you gonna edit this out?
Yeah, maybe I'll
No,
leave you
no,
there.
okay. You know, I came in here like an hour ago to come tell you we can. That's free money. So you know what? I'm gonna take that 40,000 and put it into a gambling account.
He's an idiot.
He might end up on the streets losing all his money to some get rich quick scheme.
It's very true. I think it's moot. I think people are just gonna call. It's like when Puff Daddy changed his name to P Diddy, changed the name to P. Like it doesn't matter. People
I
are just
think
gonna
with
call.
Michael Keaton, I think it was probably a legal thing, as in his actors. What's it
Yeah, no,
called?
yeah. So the reason he had changed it to Michael Keaton was because when you joined the Screen Actors Guild, which is a
Yeah,
union, they did not want any actors to have the same name. So he changed it, and he said that there's two different versions of the story that he tells. Like one was it just popped into his head. The other was he opened up a phone book. That was the first. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it, I think people just will always know him as that.
yeah.
Can I go back to the Lincoln Park thing real quick?
Okay.
Because I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about bands where they've lost the lead singer and they've rehired somebody else under the same name?
That's a good question. I
Because there's
think
there's two things about there's two ways, two things about that too. It's like, to me, it also depends on how much did that singer contribute? Like, did they write a lot of the stuff?
I think you said exactly what I was about to say. It depends how much influence and how much creativity the singer put into the band. So I think, for example, In Excess, I think they continued after Michael Hutchence, but I didn't listen to anything because it wasn't just Michael Hutchence singing; he was writing the lyrics and coming up with melodies.
Yeah.
So I think that's one example of
It
the
almost
band.
feels like a cover band, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, well, I think a cover band would be preferable because the next one I was going to mention was Journey. Okay, so Journey, I think they might not be touring anymore, but they've been touring recently without the singer,
Mm-hmm.
Steve.
Perry.
Correct. I always get them mixed up with Aerosmith. So without Steve Perry, they replaced him with a sound-alike. But I might be wrong, but I don't think they wrote any new music. I think they just
Yeah.
became a touring band, which I think is different because people still want to see Journey,
Yeah.
but they don't maybe want to hear any new Journey songs
Yeah.
without Steve Perry. And I think, In Excess, if they'd done the same thing, if they were just a touring band and they had a Michael Hutchence sound alike, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
People would still get to experience most of that In Excess experience.
Yeah. Do you think that they should change the name since it's a different iteration?
No, but I think they should well, I think it's usually clear anyway. I don't think they should change the name. Because in Excess, for example, there was, I don't know how much, 6 people in Excess, maybe five, six
Yeah.
people. So to lose one in tragic circumstances, um, and then replace that singer with another singer and continue, I can see why they would do that because they're still, 5 to 6 of the band.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
I
think
think that, like, yeah.
post and pre Michael Hutchence, it's a very different In Excess.
Yeah. Some bands have, like, one of my favorite bands, Joy Division, when they lost Ian Curtis, they changed the name. And it didn't mean that they stopped playing Joy Division songs. But what I did like is that they made them their own New Order songs. When Queen retoured, and I believe they had Adam Lambert,
Yeah,
he had a great voice. He had a great voice. Doors went around and they had Eddie Vedder singing a lot of songs. And I thought that was a good mix up. Like, he didn't join the band, but I thought that was kind of a good thing. I think that's the strange thing. It's like maybe it's the joining of the band that triggers people, right? The joining of the band. So here's another example when we're doing the flip side. Smashing Pumpkins had, you know, 4 very memorable people in the band: Darcy Rescue, James Iha, Billy Corrigan, uh, Jimmy Chamberlain. And then, at various points, different members come and leave. They go here and there. And then when they came back after a long hiatus in like 2006, 2007, it was without Darcy. It was without James. It was just like Jimmy and Billy. And so many people said, how could you come back? Well, number one, like, he wrote most of the songs. He wrote most of the bass. He's a seriously underrated bassist, just different iterations. But there were people upset with him. And it was like, dude, that's his band. Like, that's his band. Like, you can't be mad at him because 2 people didn't come back. And, now James is back. And is there hope? Maybe someday, you never know. You never know. There's a 50-50 chance Darcy will come back. Who knows, right?
yeah,
I think that it does affect people in different ways, but I think that we can enjoy different iterations.
yeah,
I mean, it doesn't really matter what we think. If somebody wants to go see it and they're spending their money, let them.
yeah,
If you don't want to listen to it because it's not Chester, then don't.
yeah,
Like, why are you making it so hard, folks?
yeah.
You know?
Well, if you think about Duran and their lineup over the years, that keeps changing, and now we're back to 4 out of the original 5 being in the band.
Yeah.
And the one that isn't is because of health reasons.
Yeah.
What is it? No, Genesis went from 6 people when Peter Gabriel left, and they
Mm-hmm.
eventually went down to 3.
Yeah.
Um, and they'd record the album, but then when they went on tour, they'd have a drummer playing the drums so that Phil Collins could sing. They'd have an extra bassist, guitarist to do the parts that Mike Rutherford wasn't doing.
Yeah.
And no, you can't. No, people still. They were probably at their most successful at that point.
Yeah. It's just it's a like I said, I don't even know what's going on with all the other stuff, but I know that there's I think maybe some of that vitriol is just people don't want Chester replaced. And I understand that, you know. But yeah, crazy vitriol. At least she stood up for her friend, unlike some people who just throw their friends under the bus.
Thinking about Oasis, we know that Oasis are reforming.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard anything about the other members. It's just all been Noel and Liam. I don't know if Bonehead and the others are coming back or if it's just Noel and Liam.
That's because that's where all the drama is. People like the drama.
That's what I mean. So if it was just Noel and Liam, people would still go.
Yeah.
But would they complain it wasn't Oasis?
No. I think that, like, certain things like that, I think Oasis is Noel and Liam, you know? That's them. I saw a great little snippet reel the other day, because usually we always hear Liam or Noel, and they're usually slagging somebody off. And it's comical. It's entertainment, right? It's funny. Sometimes they say stuff and it's like, oh, but you laugh, right? Like the one when he was kind of trashing Maroon 5. That was a little bit funny. I reposted something because it was something that he loved, and it was like really cool. And he was talking about the Strokes, like when he heard the first EP, Modern Age, and he had shared this story of that he'd heard from several people that he said when those people talk about music, he listens to those people. And he said he'd heard from a lot of different people, you got to listen to this album, you got to listen to this. And he heard it, and he said he was just totally in love with that album. And I thought that was great. It's probably one of the first times I'd ever heard him say something really, really positive, and that was really nice. And it was going back kind of to our last talk, and like Anuj was, you know, struggling with a person in music that was famous, just slagging off everybody. He seems to have quieted down now. We haven't saw. I wonder if, like, it's crazy. I was like talking to Anuj about it. I'm like, do you think that he'll recognize himself? Do you think he'll like listen to that and go, like, it's because it's like over like 16,000 views already. Do you think that he listens to it and go, oh, douche? Or do you think he's like, oh, it's a little bit like me? I wonder what's the situation.
I wonder how much of it is like Noel or Liam that say stuff just to get a reaction.
See, it could be that too. Yeah. Right?
There was another band that was, I know they were offered to, huge money to reform. And this goes back to do all the original members need to be there? But there was another Manchester band that was given a huge incentive to reform over the summer. The Smiths. Mm-hmm. And from what I read, Morrissey was, okay, let's go ahead, let's do it. And Johnny Marr was, nah, no thank you. But do you think, let me phrase this correctly, do you think if the Smiths were to reform, the audience would be happy if it was just Johnny Marr and Morrissey? Or do you think it needs to be, well, it can't be the original Thor because Andy Rourke.
It needs to be Johnny and Maz.
And no one else matters? People
matter, obviously. But in the general scheme of things, that's who people identify. Yeah. You know?
Do you think that that's reunion it. Like, would ever happen?
50-50. I mean, you never can tell. Like, I was just talking, who was I talking to? I was talking to Eric about this or somebody about this. And I was like, I was friends with David Lovering. He's the drummer for the Pixies. And I remember sitting one night, I think it was like 2002, maybe 2001, and like asking him, do you think, the Pixies are going to get back together? And his honest answer at the time was, yeah, I don't think so. I was like, because I was bummed because when they were around the first time, I was too young to go see them. And then they broke up in like 91. And I was too young to see them. And so I just thought, man, I'm never going to see them. So I asked, and it was just like, no. And it was accepting of it, So when they came back, that was awesome. I think that are Pixies still Pixies without Kim Deal in them? Yeah. It's just a different iteration, right? I can still appreciate new stuff being made, People can't go in and out of bands all the time. I mean, you can't pretend to be so naive to say, oh, well, that person isn't that band, right?
Yeah.
You know that Smiths, Johnny, okay, if you replace Johnny Marr in the Smiths, will there and start writing songs, is there going to be a visible difference? Yes. Right? Sometimes it's the chemistry and magic between two people. If Johnny was in it, there's a difference. If the bassist is changed out to somebody else, is there going to be a big difference? Not necessarily. That's just a sad reality. Not necessarily.
Yeah.
It's sometimes that chemistry. The chemistry is what makes, and I've been in recording studios with people that working together, and I see that chemistry, and it's like that's what it is. So I think that for the Smiths, yeah. You know what I miss though? I miss that drama, that rock drama from 80s and 90s. You know why? Because it was petty. Like it is petty. Come on, it is petty, but it's funny, where it's now it's more like somebody's claiming to be butthurt about something,
Yeah.
but back then it was just like petty, and it's kind of funny. Like you just saw people slagging off on Robert Smith, will slag off on Moz.
Yeah.
I just don't want to listen to him. And I don't think he's a nice person. And I think that that's funny. It was just petty, but now it's more like this person, they've, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They've emotionally damaged me because,
Yeah. It's not as playgroundy. It's more drama queeny.
yeah, the playground stuff was fun.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. There was like, I think you could find it on the internet, like just the voice messages that Kurt Cobain used to leave for Axl Rose. Like you could get it, like somebody uploaded it. It's funny. It is
Yeah.
so funny. And it's funny to think of him doing that, like him being on that moment of like, I'm gonna F with Axel right now. Like you
Yeah.
got his number, like I'm gonna leave mess. That's funny to me. That's so
Yeah.
real and human.
Yeah. And when the other person just accepts it and rolls with it, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Because Morrissey and Robert Smith just backwards and
Yeah.
forwards, and yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is. I
I
mean,
remember I
I
watched
love Morrissey, but I love some of the memes and jokes about him.
yeah, I was
Like
just about
because
to say that there was an old clip. I think it was in the UK. It was a record. It was a album review channel, and George Michael and Morrissey were on there reviewing. I think it was Joy Division. If it wasn't Joy Division, it was New Order. And George Michael was very positive and upbeat about whichever one it was, whereas Morrissey was just so critical and negative about them, which I thought was surprising. I thought it might have been the other way around. I think Morrissey was basically saying, yeah, they tried to be emotional and convey that emotion, but they just didn't do it very well. Whereas George Michael just enjoyed it for what it was.
and see though that's like isn't that exactly what this guy on the news page is doing? He's making these kind of critical critiques, and we're like, dude, chill. But and it's the same way with Morrissey. I mean, I love Morrissey. I love him, and I love the way that he is. Like that's fine. We know people like that. I know people like that, and I love them. They're like. I think somebody I don't know who it was that called him they called him he's just I think it was Robert Smith. He's like he's just a know-it-all. And we know people like that, right? But I also love those personalities because it is fun to just kind of sit back and watch them provoke people, watch them ruffle people's feathers, and they get a little thrill of that.
Yeah.
And they get exactly what they were trying to do. And there's kind of a genius in that. So there's a genius in Morrissey. But yeah, I still laugh at some of the different things that the memes that go around because sometimes he does do it to himself, just whatever.
Definitely. Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite ones was I think somebody put like on a pole. It looked like one of those they sprayed something put on a pole and it said like Morrissey canceled his concert for some reason, right? And it was like so ridiculous that it could possibly be true that it made me chuckle because it's like, yeah, he could do it for that reason. I could see that happening, you know. But bless more, like I think that it seems that maybe in the last 20 years that there are some artists that try to be that way, maybe to be controversial, to say stuff, but it sometimes seems to me like not very authentic, where I believe that Morrissey's just that way. It was how he is completely authentic.
Yeah.
He may be trying to provoke people, but that's actually him. That's him being authentic. And so I love it. I love Morrissey. I would love to have tea with Morrissey. I think that would be an interesting.
He might be against tea for some reason.
Probably. I have friends that are friends with Morrissey, and they have massive love for him. Like, so obviously, and these are people that are good people. And if people that I think that are good people have massive love for him and think that he's a good person, then I go by that, not necessarily everything else. I'm like, okay, well, this person through some degree of separation knows him. Okay. I trust their judgment for the most part. If it was somebody else, I might not trust their judgment, but this particular person. If you vouched for certain people, I don't know. Like if I would.
Well, I have vouched for people you don't know, and you haven't taken that vouching.
Some people I've heeded your vouch. I've heeded your vouch for Maestro. And then I spent a day with Maestro, and I'm like, see, Maestro was chill, totally cool person.
Yeah.
But
there you go.
There might be other people that you might heed. And
I don't vouch for many people.
No, you don't. No, you don't. But here's a perfect example. There was somebody that I had a beef with, a very, very big personal beef with, because of something that had happened, and you vouched for that person, and your vouching on that person alone softened my views. It's not that I still don't have kind of a beef with them, but I look at them more as a human being. Like I don't wish an airplane to crash on them anymore. That was a joke. That's extreme. No, I never wish an airplane to crash on somebody. No, but yeah, I mean,
that's not fair
people.
On the
that's
other
why
people on the airplane.
Exactly. But that's why I try to have people that are very different from me. Like the people in my close circle, I try to pick people that are not like me, so I can grow and learn, change my mind. I'm not into remakes. I really am not. I can't think of any remake that was better than
I think that's
the
like
original.
a topic we can discuss next time.
Yeah.
So
was there any remakes that was better than? Because I cannot think of any, and some have made me mad. I'm mad. Like when, like Red Dawn got remade, and people love Chris Hemsworth. That's great. Chris Hemsworth's a great actor. I was mad. Red Dawn, Wolverines. John has a long mustache. The chair is against the wall. Some people will figure that out. No, I got a podcast that I could say that. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. Never should have remade that movie. Such a great movie.
I'm going to try and think of some remakes that were worthwhile.
None. Crow, none. I'm angry that's another thing too. Crow should never been redone. Immortalize that for Brandon Lee and the people that love Brandon Lee. That's his thing. You've done a couple of Rob Zombie, you've done it with Kirsten Dunst, you've done it with, just stop. Just leave it. Just leave it be. I can't think of any remakes. They did a Point Break remake, I believe. How many times are they going to remake the Fantastic Four? How many iterations? And like, I don't get it. Like, you had Jessica Alba, you had Chris Evans. It bombed. You brought back somebody else, new groups. Kate Mara bombed. Why are you going to go for a third time? Like, you had Jessica Alba and it didn't succeed, right? Like, who can you bring? What do you got this time? Just, it doesn't work for whatever reason. That one doesn't work. Just leave it be.
Stop trying.
Okay. I got one. A remake. Well, it's just a reimagination. Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Most perfect casting of Spider-Man ever.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because he's like a kid. He is like the kid. I mean, Spider-Man's like supposed to be what? You don't agree?
No.
Who do you think?
I'm interrupted.
Who do you think is better?
Tobey Maguire.
Tobey Maguire.
Okay, Andrew Garfield. I don't say he was the best Spider-Man. A lot of people say he wasn't. Tobey Maguire is the best one.
Why do you think Tobey Maguire?
I don't know. I like him the best.
He was good though. I'm gonna say Tobey was good. I loved Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane.
I think all three were good Spider-Mans.
Okay. Yeah. It's nice that they got in that whole Spider-Verse thing. Tom Holland is British.
So he sounds like Garfield.
He's that just goes to show what a good actor he is, that you can't tell he's not from Queens. good actor. That just shows what a good actor he is, in my opinion.
But I still like Tobey Maguire the best.
I do like. I mean, I do like Toby.
I don't know why people like Andrew. Like, oh.
I think the reason why I like Andrew Garfield too, but I think that Tom Holland just is more like a kid. Like the reactions he has, that like, oh, cool. Hey, Mr. Tony Stark, man. Just I think it's
He's got that innocence that a child has.
Yeah, and he had the best Aunt May, Marissa Tomei.
True.
Right? Best Aunt May ever. I love Marissa. And I could go down Marissa Tomei rabbit holes. I love Marissa Tomei.
Well, we can save that for next time.
Yeah, like there's so many rabbit holes to go down.